Welcome back to the E&S Hoover Show. I am blessed to have with me a good friend of mine and former, well, still kind of a client as well, Steve Duong. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, thanks, Ian. Hello, everyone.
So I have you here because you know more about the financial sector than just about anybody I know. And anytime I need good advice, I lean on you. And I've gotten some great advice over the past, I don't know, 24 months or so. I mean, you pretty much told me to sell all my stocks prior to the COVID crash. And then I've rebought back in at pennies on the dollar and did well there. And I mean, you're filled with great knowledge. So obviously we got connected because of real estate. So you want to start investing in real estate. So why did you decide that you want to start investing in real estate and what made you decide on Pittsburgh overall out of all the places you went?
Yeah, I think first off, real estate's tangible, right? It's pretty hard to go to zero, and it's basic math. I mean, if you just want to do just basic cash flow, so it's really stuff that like anybody with a calculator or ideally a spreadsheet can actually do. And it's kind of fun. You get to go travel to the place, see the different areas, and and you start asking questions of like, why is something valuable, increasing, from the real estate perspective. And so I first started when I was in investment banking, got my first bonus. First time I was like, oh shit, I'm rich now, right? Which was not the case. But so I decided, like, this is like 20 plus years ago, and I decided, like, let me try real estate out, and if I fail, at least I'll learn something. It's not going to be something that completely sets me back, and that's really something I would suggest everybody do, is like, you don't really know something until you actually do it. And so whatever it is, if you obviously don't want to lose your shirt, but go in and definitely try something out to actually really learn it. So my first place was in Raleigh, North Carolina. It was actually a choice between Austin and Raleigh, were the two that I chose. I kind of wish I had gone with Austin first and then maybe switched over to Raleigh after, but both were still, amazing markets. And then after that, it was kind of, I didn't know that the market was still going to keep going, and it still has. So those two are still really good markets. Austin's pretty high right now, but I went and discovered Pittsburgh kind of out of a fluke. I'm a bank research analyst, and a few years back, I was an associate for a bank analyst, and we were looking at one of the companies that he covered had a data center that was opening up in Pittsburgh, and they wanted to highlight their data center. And I was thinking, like, Pittsburgh, like, that is, it's like that. It kind of threw me off, And so we went there, and they showed us everything, and I spoke with the CFO, and this is a big bank. And I asked, like, why'd you choose Pittsburgh? And really, it's the school. You got Carnegie Mellon, one of the top schools in the world, international airport. And then, the cost is like literally like 1/10 of San Francisco, right? And so those are really appealing. And then I asked him, like, well, why would anyone go from San Fran to Pittsburgh? And and he basically said that a lot of startups fail, and the ones that don't, the people that make it, they don't want to continue burning the midnight oil. They want, when they start getting to their late 30s, they want to have spend time with their family, and they want stability, right? And so that's what this company offered. And for them being able to spend 500,000 is cheap back in that day for it's cheap in San Fran, but in Pittsburgh, obviously, you could have gotten a pretty nice house back in 2016, somewhere around there.
Oh,
And so, yeah, so so basically, that's how I was like, oh wow, this is it's interesting, and that's when I kind of got in touch with you and got to find more about kind of like the bit of the tech scene there that's kind of growing a little bit. So that was the appeal of Pittsburgh.
yeah, you
It's
just
got a really long runway.
you happen to be randomly connected with the best real estate agent in the world in Pittsburgh, and
Man.
I've been improved actually. One of my agents he just bought me this for Christmas today. I got it for Christmas. It's a best real estate broker ever. So I've now
That's
improved.
true.
I went from
That's
best real estate agent ever to best real estate broker ever. So
we'll call it the truth mug.
I wasn't Michael Scott. I didn't buy it for myself. So that's the best part about it. So
Yeah.
okay, so you got in, you bought, man, I gotta think you probably bought like somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 units in a pretty short amount of time, right? If I remember correctly.
I would probably say like 10.
Okay.
More like 10.
Units.
Yeah.
Oh, it
Yes.
should have been 15 because you passed on
Yeah.
a deal that was an absolute home run.
Yeah. Or did I pass on it, or was it somebody kind of jumped in or something? I
No.
forget.
You passed on it. I gave you the first opportunity. You passed on it. I sold it to some other clients of mine, and I think they made around 150 grand. They bought it, filled it up, held on to it for like a year, and sold it. Made a really nice.
Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm kicking myself. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it was a good deal. There were some weird things about it, but it ended up being a really good deal. So but yeah, so now you hit me up with what probably 5-6 years later, you're like, hey, I want to start liquidating. So what's going through your head right now? Why do you want to start liquidating your units?
Well, it was really I mean, it's kind of odd, but I got into crypto, right? And I'll tell you, I'm normally not into crypto. I'm a banker, traditional banker. Been doing research for a major firm, and for 12 years, and investment banking for banks for 3 years. So I have 15 years under my belt. And when I heard about crypto, I'm just not into like all the coins and stuff. And but what was interesting was one of the companies I covered basically announced this partnership in the summertime with this fintech company, and to do this blockchain. And I was thinking, like, what is this, like, kind of like a gimmick, just like throw out the word blockchain to kind of get some buzz or something. And but the thing is, like, when you start going through what the benefits of it's really a distributed ledger, right? When you start understanding what the benefits of distributed ledger is, that's when you can kind of start seeing, like, okay, it's not great for everything, because essentially it's a database. It's a very inefficient database, right? It's a database that's distributed to everybody around the world, and there has to be some mechanism for consensus. There requires more energy, as opposed to a centralized database in one institution. And that institution, it has, for them, it's about reputation, and they can attest that they could say, like, yes, we're so-and-so custody, and this information here is correct, right? And so when you start kind of understanding more about blockchain and really distributed ledger technology, and you see, like, some of, like, the things, the way that we're doing things now in finance, particularly, like, what really kind of blew my mind was what Figure was doing with mortgages, right? And so when you think about a mortgage, you have to start thinking about, okay, there's a point of origination, then there is the servicing of the mortgage, then there is the financing and securitization of the mortgage, and then so sales and financing, and then there's a securitization, and securitizing into an MBS, an RMBS, a mortgage-backed security, and then that security trades, right? So all those different segments, every time you do something, going from one to another, there's friction. And every time that a loan is purchased and sold, there's a lot of duplicative work that's being done. So, and it's what they call representations and warranties, reps and warrants. And so, and that's because you, as an investor, your fiduciary obligation is to make sure the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And so you have your team of lawyers, accountants, auditors, etc., to look at the mortgages from the seller who had, their team attest to this. And so you're basically redoing the work that they did. And so one of the things that a distributed ledger allows for is that it's immutable, like it can't be changed, right? So once something is on the distributed ledger, you can know with virtually absolute certainty that it is what it claims to be. Now, maybe you don't like what it claims to be. Maybe the loan was not completely done properly, but you can make that assessment yourself and decide if it bothers you, you're going to discount it. If not, you can pay full price for it, whatever, right? But that's what the start of, like, you start understanding, like, okay, these are some, basically the systems that we currently have been doing have been done for decades, and there's an inertia with the way things are done, and this is how loans are originated, mortgages are originated, and this is how they're sold and serviced, and this is then how they're financed, and then this is how they're securitized, and this is how they're traded back and forth. And so one, if you didn't even have the distributed ledger, just to be able to completely clean out that process from A to Z, right, is a benefit in itself. But the problem is that nobody is willing to do that because they are only one participant in that a specific vertical. It's only when somebody can come in and kind of see like the entire spectrum to say, like, well, if we designed this from scratch here to here, we would say this. So in one hand, you have this basically a complete clearing out of the current process, which is really just a bunch of kludging of different process through the decades, right? It's good enough, and they just kind of kludge it together, and there's more regulation. They kludge another process together, and it's kind of like this, Frankenstein of thing that just works, but it is super, super inefficient. And so one, you have just a complete cleaning of the process, which adds value in itself. But then two is the distributed ledger, where you get basically one, it's immutable, so exactly what it is, which reduces the amount you have to spend for reps and warranties. And then two, it allows for real-time bilateral settlement, right? So this way you don't need like a custodian, give your money here and then give the deeds here, and then when things happen, the custodian kind of sends both assets to the respective parties. So that's kind of like the lay of the land there. And so I went down the rabbit hole into kind of starting to see that. And what the questions that I was asking is like, all right, well, maybe am I blowing this out of proportion? Am I, like, what's the catch? Like, why are we talking about this now? And Bitcoin's been around since 2009. Ethereum's been around since 2015. Why weren't we talking about it then, or last year, or 2 years ago, 5 years ago? And when you start kind of asking these questions, you kind of realize, like, one, the technology really needed to mature, and it's still maturing today. I mean, you went from proof of work to proof of stake. So the technology needed to mature. I mean, and the other big thing too is that Figure, their blockchain is called Provenance. It's based off of the Cosmos SDK, right? And what that means is basically this company Cosmos essentially developed this toolkit for more business people, like, to build blockchain. And to me, that's a huge thing, because it's now shifting the development away from, I would say, the technologists to more of the business side, the business people who understand like the economics better, and they understand like you got to do it this way and it's got to be this process, because you're talking for like KYC, AML, like private information. You need certain functionality that maybe somebody on the technology side may not realize, and so that to me was like a big deal, like where a lot of the technology is improved. This SDK was developed. It allows for somebody like, the CEO of Figure, who is a former, the founder and CEO of SoFi. And so he's more of a business guy, a business tech guy who understands the business side of finance and tech. And he's able to basically have his team come in and just basically build from the ground up pretty much what they know they need. Right. And so that's a huge thing. And so that's one, the technology needs to catch up. And the other thing too is regulation. Right. And so one of the things is that, this just like this past year, the beginning of the year, January 4th, the OCC issued a basically a letter that kind of gave a clarity to know that a bank can issue tokens and it's not classified as a security. Because if it's a security, then you have to go through all this SEC stuff, right? And so you just kind of have this perfect storm coming together where the technology was getting to a level, was maturing, and then you have the regulation, which is still maturing, but at least getting to a certain level that you can now have, Figure basically originating mortgages on the blockchain, which has these savings.
Yeah. So I've gotten to the point where I pretty much just blindly trust you now, and you hit me up and told me about this, and then like I went and it's not available on any kind of open trading platform, so you have to like wire money. It's real shady, like feeling like, oh, I'm gonna go wire some money and it's just gonna magically appear in my account with them, and then I get to buy it from there. But I did it and it worked out. And so far the hash token is what it's called, right? Hashcoin or hash token, what do they go by?
Hash tokens, yeah.
Hash token. I think it's pretty much doubled since I got into it, which is great. And you think it's going to go up a lot more. But you sent me a podcast to listen to with Mike Cagney, on it. And I mean, I somewhat, as a real estate professional, I have to almost call bullshit on like some of what he's saying. Like he's essentially saying with everything they're implementing that they would be able to take the process and make it less than a week to refinance a house, which I could see the financing side be less than a week, but there's still like, you still got to run title, right? Because they're not going to want to lend money out without having a free and clear.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're still like, if you start, I think he said that he's hoping to get it, within 10 to 15 days to actually purchase a home. If I remember correctly, to purchase a home, again, you got to run title. There's going to be home inspections. There's all this extra stuff that goes into it. I think realistically on a purchase, I could see them maybe trimming a week to a week and a half off of it, maybe by speeding up the mortgage process. And I think on the refinance, the only way they're going to cut it down that quickly is if they're willing to, go around title somehow. And if they do that, they're also going to probably have to use some sort of an online algorithm for how much the property is worth. Like,
yeah. Well,
yeah,
so
estimate almost like they're gonna have to do that versus an appraisal.
Yeah. So, full disclosure, I will be working for. So,
right. So you're so passionate about it that you left. You just gave your notice at your company, and you're going to work for Figure. So that's
yeah.
Faith.
It's kind of like, there's not much of a better of an endorsement than leaving your career to go this route. And I'm super excited for it. So I know, so I'm not familiar with the origination process, but I mean, I could definitely get back to you on it. And but I know the one big thing that they are really into is understanding the automation process where you can, right? And using AI where you can. And I think that's where they've excelled at. But we'll have to see. Like I'll definitely get back to you on the entire process and stuff. And we'll definitely I'll have to do a pitch
I'm
book
just
or
an old
something
school
for
real
you.
estate guy. I'm just skeptical, right? Like I would love it if
Yeah.
that was the
Oh,
case.
this is great, man. This is great. So, I mean, if anything, like I can actually, like, you'll be like somebody I'm going to hit up and just be like, all right, so let's talk about this process here and how can we make it better, you know?
I love it. Yeah, I mean, it definitely needs improved because there's no reason why it needs to take 60 days to close a mortgage. You know what I mean? Like it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing too, is like, I've started to ask, like, what is a business that's good for that can be is ripe for disruption with blockchain and distributed ledger technology, right? And that's the thing, is I think where a lot of companies, like, blockchain companies, it's like everything is just, everything's blockchain, and the reality is it's not going to work for everything, right? Where it actually works really well, like mortgages is amazing, is because you go from origination, right? And then to the actual, origination to the servicing of the asset. So basically, now that it's done digitally, you can now get like real-time remit reports, so that if somebody is the loan payment, the mortgage payment is due at 4 p.m. Friday and it's 401, an investor who's looking to buy that loan can know in real time that the delinquency of the loans, right? Normally, that's a 30-day process to get, right? Internally. Externally, it's 90 days, right? And so there is just like kind of these, certain asset classes that is really beneficial. But the biggest one is what they call structured finance. It's basically, these, let's say, mortgages that can be packaged into a mortgage-backed security. Auto loans is another type of asset that gets backed into a structured product, like into an auto loan security, right? An asset-backed security, similar to credit cards as well. Because what happens is that when all this is on the ledger, there is no need to now carry vaults of documents into this bank, into that bank, and to kind of do the settlement, etc. This is all on this one platform that can go from here to here instantaneously without any cost. And so that's why I would say is like the people, the blockchains that really, the companies that really succeed are the ones that really understand the business case, the business that they're solving, right? Those that are kind of like, well, here's a blockchain and they're pitching you like, use our blockchain, it's good for NFTs, it's good for this, it's good for that. You got it, well, sure, but welcome to the club. Everybody's got it, and really you got to understand where your value lies.
So this is probably the only YouTube show that we're gonna have out there that's talking about Hashcoin. Okay, so let's talk real quick about this and just say, like, conservatively speaking, where do you see Hashcoin at in 5 years?
All right. Well, I mean, first off, just remember, this is just my personal opinion.
Personal opinion, yes. Half of the
It
research
is not investment advice.
right.
Do your own due diligence. This is just, like the question that, the way that I would see it is like if you were, and I did the number, I think I was looking at like, okay, what is the markets that it is looking to basically enter, right? So you're looking at, let's say, the mortgage-backed mortgages, auto, maybe credit cards, student loans. These are all securitized products, right? So you look at those assets, how big the secondary market is for those debt securities that trade equity securities as well. Like, so let's just say like you're a private company and you're going to eventually look to you have these private shares, and you want to trade you're as one of the founders, and you have 100,000 shares, and you want to trade 1,000. you know that is a market that's out there. So then this is just me, like when I was just kind of doing a back of the envelope calculation. I think I came up with what was reasonable 5 years for me, which may not be for anybody else, was like the hash token getting to say around $1, right? It could really hit a home run, and it could go to $2 to $5. I have no idea, but I thought, like, okay, if things go well and they do their plan, it could go to $1. And there is 100 billion in hash tokens, so that would be $100 billion is the total value, and so I think that's what the figure team is, I assume, is hoping for. But that's kind of just my back of the envelope math when I was kind of coming up with that number.
Gotcha. Yeah. So if it goes to, which it's currently at like 11.5 cents, so if it goes to $1, you're talking about a 10x return, which would be pretty nice, right? Yeah. I mean,
yeah, but do your own due diligence. Don't, yeah, I mean,
yeah, absolutely, no doubt about it. You got to do your own due diligence on everything. So if you haven't heard about the hash token, Hashcoin, you got to go check it out. It's something that when do you think it'll be like traded on like Coinbase or crypto.com?
I think like I would think that within 2 years for sure, and possibly next year. And I kind of liken the period that we're in right now as like 1998 for the internet. So it's not even 99, right?
Right.
This was kind of the breakout year where a lot of crypto kind of like became a bit mainstream. But you're just starting to see some of like the actual real world products and services that's being developed. So I would imagine that, another year, and I would think that within 2 years, the way crypto is going, for sure, I wouldn't say for sure, but my bet is definitely within 2 years, but possibly within a year.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that would definitely help if it was readily available and could be traded, but it's probably going to make it a lot more volatile too, right? Like it's going to.
It is, and I think that's the thing is, so right now is, a lot of this stuff is there. There is, how should I say? It's like crypto is interesting where so much of it's based on essentially what they call repo style lending, right? Repo style trading, right? It's just trading of coins here, and they develop, distributed exchanges, DEXs, to do more trading of coins. So, that's cool, right? But there has to come a point where people are doing real world changing stuff that affects you and me with blockchain, right? And those are the applications that will cash flow. That's where you kind of start. I mean, the NFT market's going to be, it's already big now. That's going to be, a huge market. I mean, Ethereum's, like I'd see like it's gonna crash.
You think NFT is going to be huge? I feel like NFT is like the biggest joke on the face of the earth. Let me create an electronic piece of art and sell it for a ridiculous amount of money when everybody else in the world is just going to do a screen capture and be like, oh, I own that. It's mine anyways, right? Like,
well, let me ask you, like next time on your wife's birthday, get her a fake Gucci bag versus a real Gucci bag, and I'd just say like, hey, it looks the same, right? And I think that's the thing with human, I would say human nature is that we love exclusivity, we love authenticity. And it's not really the asset itself. It's just knowing that you have the rights to this exclusivity. And so when you think about a baseball card, like why would somebody, pay, so much money for a Babe Ruth card or stamps, but people do, right? And people, same thing for art, right? For the Mona Lisa. Why would somebody pay so much money for the Mona Lisa?
It's tangible. It's in your hands. It's on your wall, like.
But that's where I would say is that human nature is the thing that has kept the digital side from actually realizing kind of like this, digital assets, realizing what, physical assets have, is that there was no way to create authenticity and scarcity. And that's what NFTs do, right? And if you look at it at that level, at that point of view, then you start saying, okay, yeah, but what if now we went from 20, 30 years ago, pre-Facebook, if you were to say like, hey, you know what, 10, 15 years from now, everybody's going to post up their status and share their photos of when they got really drunk and stuff, and you'd probably be like, are you bullshitting me? Like, are you for real? People do it, right? And then you're going to say, well, you know what, there's people are going to pay each other through this social app where Ian's going to know that that I'm paying Joe Blow for drinks. That people do it, right? And so it kind of, and what I've realized is that a lot of people like social and they're digital, and that's just where the world is heading towards. And if the world is getting more and more digital, where potentially you get a world where like Jay-Z's holding a concert live and also in the metaverse, and you can now go backstage in the metaverse to his exclusive lounge, NFT lounge, and you can get his NFT signature for yourself, as with the Jay-Z concert, right? When you start thinking like along those lines of like, okay, the physical world and the extension of that into the digital world and the ability to create authenticity and scarcity, that's where the market is explosive.
Okay, give me, outside of Hash, give me 3 coins that you feel are going to be primed for extreme growth in the next 5 years.
Well, like, I mean, I do like Cosmos Adams, because it's just my overall thesis that similar to what the Provenance blockchain is that you're going to have these blockchains that are focused on a niche, a specialty, and they're going to be really good at it, because you got to remember is that there is always a give and take with, if you want high security, you're going to have to give up speed. You want speed, you're going to have to go lower in the validators, right? Or, so there's always a give and take. And so it really comes down to is like, what is the business that you are looking to solve? And let's say for Solana, they're looking to solve for, the Ethereum price, and it's good enough, they have to give up certain things, but they get all these benefits from it, right? So my view is there's going to be blockchains that really kind of understand where they add the value proposition, right? So I would say like Solana is interesting, where it's really going to be about NFTs for those guys. Ethereum, I think, would be like similarly NFTs, but the premium brand NFTs. So, Solana, I could see like more like just the regular artists trying to sell their product, whereas like Ethereum could be like Nike doing an NFT and, and basically saying, an Ethereum original or something like that. Basically that, it goes back to human nature. We love exclusivity. We love, being the OG, and so yeah, so I would be positive on Solana, Ethereum, um, Cosmos, also Polkadot. I think is good, and then stable coins like I think Circle's an interesting. Jeremy Allaire, that guy, the CEO. Um, he could be like every time I hear him, he really impresses me with like what he says, and he talks about he kind of reminds me of like Bezos, looking down into the entire area and not just being pigeonholed, and he's very thoughtful. So I have a pretty high opinion of him.
So when you talk about a stable coin, um, is it truly like is there any guarantees that is going to be stable for the next 10 years or anything like that? Like for instance, if you go on crypto.com and you stake most stable, their top stable coins for 90 days, they'll give you 12 and a half up to 14.5% staking return, right?
Yeah.
Is there zero risk to that? Like you can literally just put all your entire life savings into that and get 14% return?
Well, I would first off, what a stable coin is doing is essentially doing what a bank does, right? And but it does not have FDIC insurance and regular, and so there is. Tether is something I would really be worried about. There is a possibility where when the shit hits the fan and there's one exit door and everybody's trying to run out of it, you're not going to be able to, right? And so, and I think right now a lot of the politicians and regulators are seeing this, and so like Tether is, what are they, 70 billion, and so they would be like a top 50 US bank, something like that, right? So it's not gonna, if there was a run on Tether, it's not gonna be like where JP Morgan, there was a run on JP Morgan, you know what I mean? It's gonna hurt, and there's gonna be some there's going to be massive impact on the crypto scene that's a 2 to 3 trillion market. But I would say like right now these yields work because it's a young industry where everybody's piling in, right? Everybody's going in, and that's what if more capital you can attract going in, obviously then that money's got to go somewhere, right? And that works, but you can't keep that up 10 years from now. That's going away, right? And so right now is, I think, like for these stable coins, I think right now they are stable coin companies that will be regulated like banks and will probably have to be banks. That's what it seems like is happening. And I see banks, which is what Figure is doing, is trying to get banks to do more stuff that these stablecoin companies do, and issue their own stable coins to facilitate transactions and trades. So that's kind of where I see the world is going to, because there is a benefit to it, having assets like financial assets to be digitally native on the blockchain, because once you kind of have it digitally native on a blockchain, meaning that it's not like here's a physical document that's keyed into the blockchain. It's actually everything is on the blockchain from the initial 0.0, right? When that's done, then is that so many things can come out from that, and so that's where I see it going.
Interesting. Okay, I'm going to ask you a couple more quick questions, and I'm going to respect your time and let you go. So, what about meme coins? Is this like, for instance, Tesla yesterday announced that they're going to start accepting Doge for payments.
Yeah.
There's tons of the one that I've kept my eye on and I have some money in is Shiba Inu. And
You are.
oh yeah, I have a little dough in that, you know. And I've made, honestly, I've made a lot of money off of it because I got in pretty early. But like, if you look at every day, there's something new coming out about like, oh, it's going to do this, or going to do that. What's the deal with meme coins? Do you think they're all just going to explode at one point and just like be worth nothing, or are they going to be?
Well, I mean, like first off, it's easy to be, to kind of just like disregard meme coins, right? So, but I think like, you really have to start asking yourself like, what is value, right? Why is gold valuable, right? Why is gold more valuable than say water, right? But when you start kind of asking these questions, and you really kind of start saying is that value is just what people place on things. And if you get something that may have started out as a meme, right, as a joke, but once people believe it and they go with it, and then it kind of has a life of its own, and then everybody is kind of going and they're using it to settle, and there's a history to that. It could go from a meme to a legit coin. Like that is certainly reasonable. And I think like Bitcoin was an example of that, where a lot of people originally, I kind of thought it was a joke or something, but more people believe it, and everybody thought the demise of Bitcoin would come, and it didn't. And now it's become the OG of coins. But Dogecoin is really interesting, where you got freaking Elon Musk willing to do it, right? And so you got to ask yourself, it's like, what's value? Value is just belief. Just like we have a belief in the dollar, there's nothing, there's really nothing backing it up except our government with physical force. But it's really our belief in, this dollar represents economic activity. We're placed value on that. So one, I think it certainly is possible for the, some of these meme coins to actually become something. So that's one. Two, you have to understand that when you're getting into it, you are speculating, unless the meme coin's just been through the entire spectrum. But here's the thing: is that we've gone through 2020, 2021, a shitload of liquidity was pumped into the banking system, right? All of that is seeping through into really three areas: housing, stock market, and crypto, right? And rates have been super low. So now is you have the Fed speeding up their tapering, which means they're going to stop buying bonds, sooner, and then they're going to plan for 3 rate hikes, right? And so what is crypto? Is crypto kind of like a risk-on asset trade, where like when there's this much liquidity in the system, sure, everybody's happy, but it's hard to know, like, okay, is crypto, is it just a lot? There's a lot of traders kind of supporting this market, and now that the cost of the trade is going to go up because the cost of borrowing is going up, and they're going to start pulling out, and then there's this constant this feedback loop, because there's a lot of like posting of collateral to trade these other coins. So I would just be very cautious. Right now with the meme coins, when there's this much liquidity, it's fine. But what do you do when there's less liquidity, when there's a tightening next year, and let's say the economy starts to slow? That I would be very cautious then, because I don't know, maybe things still go well, but maybe it doesn't, because that is a very different macro environment that you're going to be facing.
What about video game coins?
I'm actually bullish on those. Yeah.
What's your favorite one? Like Sand, Mana?
I don't really know those, but because I'm not a gamer myself, but there's people who are hardcore gamers, and the like that's why I'm also bullish on NFTs, is because now it's like you could now the assets that you have in one game is actually yours, and you could bring it to another game, you know, and so it really kind of creates this interesting dynamic. And you know, it's now it's like the game is not actually owned by a company. It's basically, you know, it's the people's game or whatever, right? Um, and so I think that market's actually pretty big. I mean, I can only imagine, like, you know, like what if there was like online poker, right? And the deck you use, like there's it was you could NFT that deck, and you know, the winner of, like, you know, the world poker game, online poker game, like they get to keep that deck, you know, or the trophy or something, right? There's just so much you can kind of do with this stuff. And so gaming, I see that's just going to continue on. And you know, you hear some of the stories where there's people out in the Philippines actually making a living, um, being paid to play. You know, obviously they don't need as much money to live on, but it's an interesting, you know, area where that's constantly growing. And I just imagine that that's just going to continue to accelerate as crypto gets bigger.
Very cool. What about one last question I have for you is I've heard it numerous times that like eventually the supply of Bitcoin will run out.
Yeah.
What happens in that scenario if the supply of Bitcoin runs out? We're talking that clearly the overwhelming number one crypto, and it just there's no more of it. Does that just skyrocket the price to a ridiculous amount?
I would think so. Yeah, I would think so. But you know, like, first off, like, Bitcoin is not really currency, and it probably will never be currency. And I thought, it really goes to, like, I don't think people have a fundamental understanding of what money is, right? Like, you know, if you were to say, like, well, what's a perfect monetary system? The perfect monetary system would be like, if I have, like, the economy has one apple and $1, that apple's worth $1, right? And if in the second year the economy produces two apples, but if if the monetary system doesn't keep in pace and only has $1, right? Those two apples now have to share that $1. So they're basically, it's 50 cents per apple. It's deflationary, right? And what I feel like what Bitcoin maximalists don't understand is that the fact that there is a hard cutoff is a deflationary monetary system. That is not a good thing. You know, that's not something you should want. The ideal thing is like a perfect, you know, monetary system is like, you know, products and service go up, then you have the monetary system expanding the same rate, so that there's price stability, right? And that's essentially what banks do, right? And most people don't know is that the way money is created, it's actually just debt. It's literally 90, I'm going to say like 95% or 90% of the money that's actually, you know, like deposits like in your bank account is done through banks, where, you know, when you go to get a mortgage, a bank literally puts in like $100,000 loan, and they put in a credit to your deposit account of 100,000, which then automatically gets sent to the seller, right? And now the system is now up $100,000, but they're essentially IOUs, right? And so this has been going on for, you know, I don't know how long, like centuries, right? And so and it's actually it's kind of like there's just been some agreement, you know, where banks have been given this power to where they are allowed to create this loan and this deposit, a debit and a credit, right? in doing that, this IOU is the the U.S. legal system says this is legal tender. Like you can accept these loans and these deposits that were just generated in basically literally just going into their computer and typing in that. So people talk about the Fed printing money. It's not the Fed. Banks create money. The Fed creates bank reserves, right? Which is it's monopoly money for banks. It's not what actually happens. So banks create money for the most part. And the thing with Bitcoin is that, and the reason why banks are good at this is because they have an expertise in credit. So like, Ian, you're like, hey, I want to build a house. Well, let's give me the proposal. Your banker will ask you for the proposal, go through it, and just say, yeah, it's a viable project. We'll lend it out. And then when you're done with it, you know what? You have this asset where this loan and the asset kind of match each other, right? And so that's where the bankers have been given this power because they've been good at underwriting. That's their expertise. And the monetary supply expands, hopefully, according to the economic productivity of the country. Now, we've had problems where that didn't work out. The financial crisis was a prime example where the banks created too many loans relative to the products and services that the country was producing at the time. And as a result, there was a lot of defaults, right? Mm-hmm. They've learned their lesson from that. And now it's that they're not going to do that. But in not doing that, what you're seeing now is that there's less growth in the US than there used to be. We're in a lower growth, deflationary long-term trend. Near term, we're in an inflationary trend with a lot of supply chain issues currently, but long term, you really got to start thinking about like the demographics are not good, and on top of that, technology is basically replacing a lot of workers, and it's making you can now produce more with less, and that's a deflationary thing.
Okay, last question for you. You got $100,000 to invest. What are you investing in, and how would you diversify it?
Hey, man. Well, I think that's a tough question because
maybe not you specifically, but what would you like if you were not, because you're obviously very passionate about one particular investment right now, but if you were just getting into like, I just have $100,000 in the bank and I want to invest in something, what should I invest in? Like, how would you break that 100,000 up?
Well, I mean, I think, okay, so let's just say like there's a certain part out of that 100,000, I'm willing to do a risk on trade 10 to 20,000 with crypto, right? Different crypto assets where maybe one of them 10x's or 100x's, and that'll be a big payday or something, right? Because I believe that down the road, the NFT market is going to be bigger, and somebody's got to, that blockchain's got to be there or something like that. Also, doing digital assets on like mortgages, etc., on a blockchain. So I am a believer in that. So I would kind of put in, kind of some plays on crypto. And then, another area like really is like I actually, right now, it may not seem like a good choice, but I'm still bullish on housing. And the reason why is rates are going to rise next year because the Fed's going to try to combat inflation, right? But after that, I think they're kind of stuck in a pickle where growth is going to slow, and they're going to have to try to be accommodative to the economy. And so I do see rates going back down eventually. but the thing is that we've never been here before, right? We've never, I mean, the amount of money that we put into the system is beyond World War II levels, right? And where it's going, it's going into basically the stock market, housing, and crypto. And like, you have to wonder, like, eventually though, is there a point where like, why would people invest in this? And like, even like real estate, it's really hard. I mean, yourself, it's hard to find something that cash flows. It's really hard to find something that cash flows. If you do, I mean, damn it, you're lucky. And the things like, why would people invest in something that is cash flow negative? And it's just because they believe that prices are going to go up. And essentially they do this because they believe implicitly that the Fed's got their back. That's the overall thesis, is that overall the markets and institutional investors believe that the Fed will do what they have to do to keep things going. It's just that now you're institutionalizing the risk. And and that's kind of a very subtle risk, and that I hate to, I don't know what would happen if the shit hit the fan. But like, that's more down the road. And we'll have to see when we kind of get there.
You're missing the number one most important thing about owning real estate.
What's
tax
that?
benefits.
Yes.
Tax dollars.
Yes. Totally.
We don't want to pay Uncle Sam. That's why we own real estate, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So
and it's just like, it's just hard to like now to like roll stuff into something else because everything's so pricey right now,
It's true. Yeah, trust me. I at least for the first 6 months of this year, I basically bought nothing. I sold some stuff, honestly, because the prices were crazy, right? So you would invest, like, if you had 100,000, you would invest 10 to 20% in crypto and then put the rest into real estate, is what you're saying.
I would put the rest in real estate, and then really I'd, try to, because the stock market, I'm just not, we'll have to see how the stock market does. Like, right now, I'm actually positive on banks. Like we put out an outlook that was positive on banks, because, higher interest rates are good for banks right now. Their margins will get better. So in the near term, I see that being a positive. It's just more of like, when I look down like the second half of the year, that's where it gets really fuzzy, right? Because you don't really know, like, okay, they jack up rates. What exactly happens? Like, does the economy like tank, or does it kind of just slow a little bit, or, or is there a knee-jerk reaction? I have no idea.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time. We're definitely gonna have to follow back up and have another show at some point. And then I'm gonna plead with you that you need to have your own channel, man. You need to be talking about, like, you have such a great financial brain. I would love to see you out there educating people and really finding ways to make a difference out there. And then, obviously as you get bigger, you'd be able to monetize it and make some money off of it too, which you would in turn reinvest into another crazy crypto that you're working on at that current point in time.
Well, what I need in doing that is a moderator who asks me great questions. So
hey, I'm game, whatever. I'm there. If you need me, I'm there.
Well, I do owe you a trip down to Pittsburgh, and hopefully we can close a deal or something.
That'd be great. I can't wait.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for stopping by, Steve, and we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Sounds good, man. Good talking to you, Ian.
Well, guys, that was a fantastic interview with my buddy Steve. As you can tell, he just has a really in-depth mind when it comes to the financial sector of everything. So I hope you enjoyed this content. We're going to have some more investing in crypto talk in the near future as well, to go along with my real estate videos. It's just something I'm passionate about and I've done pretty well with. I don't know nearly as much as Steve does. I just try and look for, coins that I like and things that have high upsides, and then I throw a little bit of money at it. It's almost like a gamble, but I'm a betting guy anyways. I like to bet on stuff. So as long as I'm doing it with money that I'm okay with losing, I'm pretty happy with it. But I have had some really good wins lately. I invested. Yeah, if you are looking at which app to get into, which I'm going to do another video about, I highly recommend crypto.com. I was on Coinbase for a while. The fees are super, super high. Crypto.com, the fees are pretty much no fees. I've yet to be hit with really any kind of real fees on there. And then if you use their coin, their Crow coin, you stake that and get their crypto card. You get some really awesome benefits, up to 14.5% staking. And it's just a really great product. So I recommend that you check that out. But their Crow coin, I bought it at like 15 cents a coin, and it's up. It was up to almost 90 cents at one point. It's down around 50 cents right now. But it's definitely something. I think that particular coin could be a top 10 coin in the near future, just because of how popular their setup is, and because you have to stake their coin in order to get the maximum staking that's out there. So do some due diligence, and if you're not into crypto yet, just buy a little bit. I mean, just let it go and see how it goes. Find a coin that you like and that you're passionate about, and it's just like a stock market. You could lose money, you could win money. This is not financial advice. I don't recommend that you go put your whole life savings in a stable coin, but it's definitely some cool things to think about. And the world of crypto is just getting started. As Steve says, it's 1998, and we're in the internet world, right? So, but anyways, I hope you enjoyed this content. Stick to the channel for future videos, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. I've been a little slacking on putting out new content because we're opening up a new office, and I'm working a whole lot on that, but I am going to get back first of the year and start banging out a bunch of videos for you guys. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.